Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on this fifth session of the World of Seabird series. If this is the first time you watch these videos, the World of Seabird series is a project of the World Seabird Union's Early Career Scientist Committee. We ask people who work on seabird research and conservation to share with us short videos highlighting the place where they work and the seabird species and the people living there. You can find details on how to get involved in the project and with the Early Career Scientists Committee of the World Seabird on the World Seabird Union's website, seabirds.net. We're planning several more sessions in the months leading to the World Seabird Conference, which hopefully should be next November. My name is Yvan Satgé. I'm an independent researcher with the South Carolina Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. I'm also one of the co-chair of Bird's Caribbean Seabird Working Group. At the moment, the working group is trying to locate all the people who work with seabirds close or far in the Caribbean. So if you haven't done so, please consider responding to our survey. I will put a link just below the video here. With us today is Juliana Coffey. She is a project coordinator at the Caribbean NGO EPIC, Environmental Protection in the Caribbean. Juliana and I will discuss with her work with seabirds in the Caribbean, in particular in the Grenadines, and we will try to answer any question you may have. So please do post questions to the right. There is a chat. Feel free to ask questions. Welcome, Juliana.
Thank you very much.
So hopefully this is working. YouTube says we have an excellent connection. Juliana is in Newfoundland at the moment. I'm in France, and we're going to talk about the Caribbean. So Juliana, what's your experience with seabirds? How did you get involved with seabirds in general?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm from Newfoundland in Canada. It's a big island off the eastern side of Canada. So growing up, we have quite a lot of seabird colonies very close to our shores. Our waters have also been referred to as a busy marine bird highway. So we're kind of surrounded by seabirds, and I guess I started working with them when I was 16, and I got a summer position with Dr. Bill Montevecchi, who's an ornithologist at the university here. So he kind of gave me my first taste of fieldwork on one of the larger colonies here with the Atlantic puffins. And then after that summer, he kind of kept me on for several years afterwards. So I was exposed to quite a lot of different research projects as research assistant. I got to travel around Newfoundland and Labrador as well with that. And so from then, basically I just kept going with seabirds. So even times when I might have worked as a fisheries biologist or on marine mammal projects, it was kind of, my eyes were sort of always on the seabirds and always distracted by the seabirds. So the seabirds has been kind of a common theme for me.
Okay. So I saw in your bio that you worked in in the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean as well?
Yes, so in Canada, I've worked Newfoundland and Labrador, also in the Arctic as well. I traveled to Australia where I was based out of Melbourne, but my research was in Ashmore Reef, which is sort of much closer to Indonesia than it is to Australia.
And how did you get involved with seabirds in the Caribbean?
So in the Caribbean, in 2011, I was working for a small NGO based in the Grenadines. And during that time, part of my position was to do bird surveys. So not just seabirds, but birds in general. However, I sort of already had this seabird passion, I guess. So that's really how I started to work with seabirds in the Caribbean. Okay,
that must have been a big change from working in Canada and the Indian Ocean.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah, it definitely was, for sure.
Yeah. And just before we keep going, so a lot of early career people just finishing a master's or a PhD may be interested. What would you recommend for people to really find a job in seabird conservation?
Sure. So I guess basically what I did, try to find out what projects are happening and link up with the researchers that are doing them or the organizations in particular that are doing them. just try to get involved, whether as a volunteer, as an assistant, and just do your own research and find out actually what's happening and reach out.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the Caribbean, how would you compare seabirds from the Caribbean from those in other places where you worked? So I guess the species are very different, the ecosystems as well.
Yeah, so they're definitely different, but oftentimes they're the same. So we have the sort of pan-tropical species such as brown booby, red-footed booby. So those were more familiar ones that I would have known from the Indian Ocean as well. In the Grenadines as well, we have the migrants coming from North America. So we would have like common tern, these kind of ones that travel south. So although they are different, they're also a lot of the same as well. So you can really see how seabirds, they really kind of unite different areas through their migrations and the habitats and ecosystems that they live in.
So I guess the Grenadines were a very logical place for you to end up.
Yes, and once I started going, I just kept going back because it was a very understudied region. So there was very little known about it, and that's kind of the sort of mystery of that is really, I guess, drawing and just have more and more questions all the time, more research to do, and yeah, so it was a nice sort of central area between North America, where I'm from, and the tropics, where I had done work as well.
Yeah. And so you're talking about research being done, and I'm guessing research needs as well. What would be the threats facing seabirds in the Caribbean? Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. So one of the bigger things, I guess, that kind of distinguishes the threat complex from other areas, as we all know, like seabirds, they would nest often on remote islands, inaccessible islands. So what really stands out in the Grenadines and also in the Caribbean is things like harvesting, for example. Harvesting has been identified as the #1 threat in the Grenadines currently.
Okay.
So it's still quite a frequent practice that is that occurs by people throughout the Grenadines. So yeah.
Is
also
that any species or any life stage?
So certain species, it kind of depends on what island you're from. So in the Grenadines, there's basically about 80 different islands, rocks and keys, and only 9 of them have people. So basically it depends on what, I guess, the species complex is closest to your island, for example, that would influence what and when you harvest. So brown boobies in particular, they're chicks oftentimes. Also laughing gulls for eggs, sooty terns for eggs, these kind of things.
Okay.
We also have, I guess, introduced mammals are, a lot of people really rely on their livestock. So there's sort of these remnant populations of feral goats on these islands, goats in particular. We also have sheep, some rodents as well. So these are sort of through, even in these globally important islands that we find in the Grenadines, they have big populations of goats oftentimes. And then of course we have plastics that are becoming more and more frequent. Yeah.
What about habitat loss, kind of destruction? Or
definitely, that's a huge concern. So these islands have been kind of, agriculture on these islands has been happening for, I guess, about 500 years now, on and off. So even islands that don't currently have people or have any activities happening, they've been quite drastically changed over the years through these activities. And in some cases in the Grenadines, we also have entire islands for sale. So that's quite a concern, where we can try to mitigate these other threats, such as the goats, the rodents. But really, when the entire island is sold, it's that's sort of the biggest threat of all, really.
Yeah. Yes. I guess we'll talk about that a bit later. Conservation issues and how to involve the communities to avoid these big issues. And one of the, I guess, threat, I don't know if they're impacting as much during the breeding season, but could hurricanes be a major threat as well? Or
Absolutely. So the peak breeding season is from about May until the end of August. So that also coincides really with the hurricane season. So of course that's a big factor where a lot of damage could be done just in one single event, and then the seabird would have to wait mostly until the next year to be able to nest again.
So you told us briefly that the Grenadines count, I don't remember how many, but a lot of islands. Can you tell us where it's located in the Caribbean Basin, and tell us more about the geography?
Absolutely. So the Grenadines region, it's a transboundary region. It's in the Lesser Antilles. So the Lesser Antilles is basically from Antigua down to Grenada in the Eastern Caribbean. St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada are sort of the two nations that share the Grenadine Islands. So basically the Grenadines, it's an archipelago that runs from the St. Vincent mainland all the way down to the Grenada mainland. And they put a political border sort of right between them. So it's a transboundary region that, although it's more ecologically similar to adjacent islands and socioeconomically as well, they have been split politically.
So in two different countries?
Yes. So again, there's about 80 islands and keys, and only 9 of these actually have people living on them.
Okay. So the species of seabirds, you touched a bit about that. So you talked about boobies and sooty terns. Any other ones of interest?
For sure. So we know now that there's 12 breeding species of seabirds there. 7 of these are listed as Caribbean at-risk species. So we've got the 3 species of boobies: red-footed, masked, brown booby. 2 types of tropic birds, white-tailed and red-billed. We've got frigate birds, magnificent frigate birds. So this species, actually through our research, it wasn't known to nest there. It was historically known to nest, but in recent years it hasn't been known to nest there. However, we discovered a pretty sizable colony last year, which was really, really good news. We also have Audubon shearwater and different species of terns and noddies as well.
So you say that you discovered the frigate bird colony only last year. So was that because they moved in, or you just found it?
I think, well, it's always, again, like the local people know it's there, but scientists don't know it's there. So historically, we knew that they were nesting there, and then they hadn't been recorded in recent years through surveys. However, the fisher folk from nearby islands were saying that they're there, and so we obviously wanted to go there and see if they were there or not. And so we kind of went there at a time where the previous surveys hadn't been done. We found them in December. So whereas other surveys would have been done more in peak breeding season, we went there at a different time and found about 100 nests there, which was quite significant. So so that colony is only one of 4 in the entire Lesser Antilles.
Yeah, great find.
Thank you.
Good job for, I guess, focusing on that, on searching for nests, and that leads us to the recent book you wrote with Ali Olivier, The Birds of the Transboundary Grenadines.
Sure.
That was a big project, I understand.
It was a big project. So basically, when I first went to the Grenadines in 2011, I was used to, I guess, having my bird book, especially when I'm in an unfamiliar region, to be able to help me out with identification and these kind of things. But for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, there was no real tool like that you could use. So so basically, I naively decided that I was going to write one. I told myself I would be finished in a year. I was a bit ambitious. So after about a year, I kind of got involved in other things and put it by the wayside. Then Ali Olivier, she's with National Geographic and Birds Caribbean. We sort of lived on the island at the same time. So she kind of prompted me to pick it back up and got involved. She's a really amazing cartographer and graphic designer as well. So we sort of passed copies of this book back and forth for about 7 years. During that time, we both lived in a lot of different countries. Most of the book was written either at sea, in a tent in the Arctic, these kind of things. But we did complete it last year. And I guess the biggest feature in that book that we're really proud of is the local knowledge that we collected. So we traveled there 2015. And basically we conducted interviews with over 100 residents of the Grenadines. So it could be fisherfolk, tour operators, just general residents, about their knowledge of birds, their stories about birds, their folklore, superstitions, their local names. And we kind of incorporated all of this into what would have been sort of your traditional field guide. We also incorporated all of this local knowledge that was previously unwritten.
Did you incorporate recipes as well, or no?
We left that out, but we heard about a few, definitely.
And I guess you touched a bit on what prompted you to start the book. So was a lack of local knowledge, local book on
Yeah,
seabirds?
so at that time I had just come from Labrador, northern Canada. So up there I was working a lot with Indigenous people, mainly the Inuit up there. And I guess a big theme up there was traditional knowledge. And oftentimes it was superior to any of the science because there was none. So I kind of came into the Grenadines with that background of sort of a value for the traditional knowledge and the local knowledge. When I went there, I saw that I guess fisherfolk and a lot of these sort of marginalized communities were not really involved in conservation, but I knew that they had this knowledge. I knew they did. So that was sort of an effort to combine the two so that we would get them more interested, ideally, in resource management issues, and through basically seeing their own knowledge documented and valued and put in a framework where that it could be used as a tool for conservation.
So are you seeing it being used?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, and that's been actually the most rewarding part, is to have interviewed these people and to go back there and be able to actually give them a copy and show them, yes, we finished this finally. But here's the story that you told us, and here's the local name that you gave us. And so that's been kind of the most rewarding part. We're also using it for training local seabird monitors. So it's a tool that can be used for training local bird monitors there as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like a really great project, and you were, I guess I commend you for sticking with it. I know that's a good expression, but anyway, good job, kudos.
I think it's pretty fitting, actually. Thank you very much. It was a big effort. It was a lot of work. We still remained great friends through the process, and
That's important.
we're really happy to have it finished.
Good. So, so you talked about using the book for different projects in the Caribbean. So so that leads us back to the work of EPIC, Environmental Protection in the Caribbean, local NGO. Can you tell us a bit what's EPIC's involvement in there, in the Grenadines? And then your role as a project coordinator?
Sure. So my role as the project coordinator there is sort of all-encompassing, from fieldwork to training people to conducting outreach, advocacy with the government and trying to get the government on board with these things, media, so writing press releases, funding. We're always, everyone's always looking for money to do research. So so it's pretty all-encompassing. One of the things, I guess, that we did last year, we wrote, basically, again, I'll just give a bit of quick background. In 2009 and 10, they did the first sort of region-wide surveys, breeding seabird surveys of the region, the whole Lesser Antilles. And what they found in those surveys was that the Grenadines is really probably the most important breeding seabird area in the whole Grenadines, in the whole region. So whereas nothing was known about that region before, it instantly just sort of stood out at the very top. However, again, there was basically nothing known about it. So the research that we've been doing, it's not just been baseline information such as how many breeding seabirds are there, where are they, these kind of things. It's sort of trying to very quickly involve communities on their conservation. We know seabirds are declining worldwide. We don't really know what their status is in the Grenadines. So we're doing a little bit of everything: invasive species surveys, surveying people about like harvest surveys. How many birds do you harvest a year? When do you do that? These kind of things. So one of the bigger items that we did last year was we wrote a conservation management plan. And this was with both nations, so St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada. And to do that, we did it through a participatory process. So we visited each island, including the mainlands, to interview stakeholders about their vision for seabird protection. We also did a full inventory of the species there, where they are, also what other things are on those islands, such as endemic lizards, the threats. So that's basically a planning document that we want to use going forward to basically guide anyone, not just us, on research, management, conservation, education, and sort of the things that can and should happen here for seabird protection.
That was a lot of work. And are the government involved, or are they using the planning, the plan?
So what we're doing right now, this was part of the recommendations from the conservation plan, was to set up a transboundary wildlife working group specific to seabirds. So we're kind of drawing together a multi-stakeholder group. So we have government officials on there, we have tour operators, we have fisher folk from every island. So this committee is one that we want to establish to be able to understand this plan and then represent their stakeholder groups and begin to implement the plan basically in whatever capacities that that we are able to.
Great. So
the government is definitely involved, and all stakeholders have been sort of drawn in to try to get on board with this.
Yeah, so it's not just a top-down approach by the government, but also the communities are involved.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I guess that links to what you call ethno-ornithology. That's what you're using to gather this knowledge and redistribute it to the people, right?
Definitely. So ethno-ornithology, I actually also have a background in physical anthropology and archaeology, so it's kind of why I always steer towards the human element as well, about what are the human factors in conservation. And so I kind of operate right at the interface of the environment and human factors. The ethno-ornithology, we really believe in, I guess, these islands, again, because they're so remote, they're only being visited most often by fisher folk. These fisher folk, they're really environmental experts in their own right. They use trial and error to catch the fish. Obviously, they watch the seabirds. They use them for finding fish, navigating, understanding weather. So this kind of ethno-ornithology is really a core component of the whole research down there, really, and the whole conservation and management of them as well.
And that's the citizen science project that you're developing as well. Yes.
So several years back, again, because they're really the only ones that are visiting these islands, it's really expensive to, again, 80 islands, to get a research grant to visit every single island all the time. It's not very practical. So we're trying to train locals, whether it be fisher folk, whether it be a tour operator, whether it be a biologist that's local to there as well. We're kind of trying to train these people in these surveying seabird methods, other methods as well. We've sort of branched out to plastic and nest surveys, invasive species surveys, and we're kind of mobilizing the citizen science group from different islands to go out and actually conduct this research as well. And the really great thing about this is that it really unites people from different islands as well, and also both nations. So they're called the Grenadine Seabird Guardians, and we kind of set up different ways for them to communicate, such as a WhatsApp group, and they keep in touch about what seabirds they're seeing, how many they're seeing, threats that they're seeing as well. We've had some really great things come out of that. So, for example, gull-billed tern that hadn't been recorded in Grenada for about 130 years.
Wow.
And now, just in the past year, in the past couple of months, one guy has been so lucky to see and photograph 3. So, so once you get people out there and looking, then there's things that that you're going to find there for sure.
And that's why you made a video that you shared last week?
Yeah, so the video is, it wasn't, when I took those videos, it wasn't really planned that it was going to turn into something like that. I sort of just often took videos when I was out doing field work. And through Epic, we sort of wanted to make a video also as a different tool to reach people through the general media, make people proud about their islands. And a lot of people from the different islands, they don't get to travel so much to the other islands or the other countries. So to basically show them what's out there, how special it is in a global context, and get them to be really proud and sort of embrace this this big resource that they have in their backyard. Yeah.
Did you get feedback from people on the video?
Yeah, a lot of people are just really shocked by some of the footage, such as especially drone footage is always quite captivating when when you're able to see it from a perspective that you're not really able to see it from normally when you're on the water, sort of thing. So a lot of people are really proud of it. It's been entered in several film festivals as well, and the local knowledge as well. You can see the fisher folk speaking in there about how they use birds. So really for the next generations, it's really, I think, important for them not just to see this footage and to see what's there currently, but to hear their own citizens speaking about how they use the seabirds as well.
Yeah, it was great to share it. Great to see what's in the Grenadine, but also that part with the fisher folks was really very interesting to realize that they are using them, using the seabirds, and this link between seabirds and people is very strong. So.
Yeah.
And so that footage of people, that was part of a conversation with the fisher folks, part of your surveys?
Yes, so those 2 clips actually were taken by Listra Kulzak, who is our lead educator. She's based in St. Vincent. She's from St. Vincent as well. So so she took those clips when she was doing sort of a community presentation and speaking to the fishermen about seabirds and the projects and about how they use the seabirds.
Great. I think we touched about a lot of different things in this conversation. What other projects do you want to undertake by yourself or with Epic and the Grenadines?
Sure. So I guess one of the bigger ones that I would love to do is more like a full-on documentary. This one was only about 10 minutes. We hadn't really planned to do it. We kind of put it together and we had the footage to do it. So so we're really proud of this one, but I would really love to do a longer one that really goes into more detail with the fisher folk about their relationship with the seabirds, their knowledge of the birds, complemented with more of the breeding footage and more of this research, such as on the status of birds there and what species are there. We're also hoping to do a telemetry project. So this, again, not just to find out where the birds are going, but as another tool to really show these nations and the people that these seabirds are also transboundary and you share them, and therefore you should be working together to preserve them as well, or you can be working together. We're also doing currently invasive species surveys. We also hope to do another updated census. So it's been over 10 years now, about 11 years since we had the last real population numbers. So we're hoping later this 2021 to do an updated census. So then we would ideally have an idea of what the trends are with them as well.
So do you think gold-billed terns are nesting?
Pardon?
Do you think gold-billed terns are nesting there?
I can say I would hope so, but we'll find out. We hope to find out. Yeah, I kind of believe there's more frigate bird colonies in more of the very inaccessible areas, but we're not sure. But we have some people sort of out scouting for that now, which is really great.
Great. Looking forward to hearing of the results.
Thank you.
Well, anything else you want to add? I think we'll wrap up soon.
Sure.
And I want to ask if people viewing the video have any questions. Jennifer said hi, and Ado say yay Seabirds. If you have any questions, go for it.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, completely open to answer any questions.
And in the meantime, so did you want to add something more?
I guess any like researchers that are listening, if you have any expertise that are sort of specialized or not, or any interest in doing research here, I know EPIC is always looking to partner with people on their expertise, and this is kind of a region that would need it. Again, we're starting off at the baseline, and we're trying to go do all different aspects of seabird conservation, research, management, education. So if you have any skills that you could contribute, absolutely get in touch with us. I hope some of the Seabird Guardians are listening as well, because we're really proud, especially of your work and your efforts as well, to be out there battling the elements in speedboats with your binoculars and your notepads. So thank you all also for that, for those efforts.
Yeah, and I want to add that I'm not from your group or from the Grenadines, but it's very outstanding project you're doing, and you and EPIC, but also the Guardians. It's very great to see people involved and being outside and recording seabirds.
This is the best part. We had last year during one of the fisherfolk sessions we had, it was very interesting to see that we obviously had older fisherfolk and younger fisherfolk there, and the older fisherfolk, there was one sort of younger one who was really probing about the seabirds and wondering what if certain birds meant certain types of fish in the water. And what he was really getting at, he was really interested to learn about the seabirds because he thought it would make him a better fisherman. So it's also really interesting to for people who don't necessarily want to be biologists, but to show them how they can use seabirds in their own professions, such as fishing, such as sailing, to kind of make it relatable to them as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Juliana.
Thank you very much.
Great discussion. If you want to rewatch the video, you should find the link below this one. We'll make sure to include it in the comments. And I want to reiterate that if you're from the Caribbean and working with seabirds, interested in seabirds, studying seabirds, please fill out the Birds Caribbean's Seabird Working Group survey. We're trying to find everybody working on seabirds. Thank you, everybody. Bye, Jennifer, and bye, Ali.